What's up, Titans Nation? Welcome back to the Titans Traffic Update. I'm your host, Gannon Cornley, and today we are going to be looking at different mock drafts. Of these will be done by myself, looking at different scenarios that the Tennessee Titans could potentially be looking to do on next Thursday and next Friday in the draft. If we know anything about Mike Berganzi, we know that he has no problem moving up or down in the draft order so far, just based on his one draft with the Tennessee Titans last year. And so today I'm going to really focus on looking at what the Titans potentially will be looking at trade wise down from potentially number 4 in the first round and potentially looking back, trading back down at number 35 and potentially later on into the draft. So, first segment, we're really going to focus on trade downs in the first round and what different scenarios that could look like for the Titans. Look at some trade down scenarios in day 2 and potentially how that could set up how the rest of the draft could look out in day 3. So that's what I'm going to be looking at for today. And at the very end, we are going to look at my personal ideal mock draft for the Tennessee Titans. If I had my way and everything fell in order, this is exactly how I would draft for the Tennessee Titans for this upcoming season. Before we get into it, again, please like and subscribe. Again, please follow me at Titans Traffic on Twitter/X, Titans Traffic Update on TikTok, as well as Instagram, as well as there. You guys will find a lot of my reels on there. I like to kind of snip different things so you can guys, if you don't have time to watch the entire show, you can hear a little bit of what my segment's about, and I'll be trying to put out a little bit more snips to here and there, so you guys can just kind of follow along. But please, again, like I said, like and subscribe, leave comments down below. Let me know what ultimately you guys want to talk about. When I continue to grow this show, it's going to ultimately be what the fans are looking for. So I want Tennessee Titans fandom to comment on this. Let me know what you guys want to talk about. This will be a space for you guys. And ultimately, I'll just be here kind of responding to you guys, and we can talk just as Tennessee Titans fans what we want to discuss and ultimately get everything out there, out in the world. So, before we get started, one more time, I want to say it again. Please like and subscribe. Really trying to hammer that in there. Want to get these likes and subscribes up. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get into today's show. So, the very first mock draft I do want to look at with you guys is a trade down in the first round. And this one's going to be, I'm going to look at two different scenarios. One, I'm going to be looking at the Tennessee Titans trading back just a few picks, still inside the top 10. And then we're also going to look at Tennessee Titans trading back outside of the top 10 from that number 4 spot. So, with the very first mock draft, you guys should be able to see here on the screen, I have the Tennessee Titans trading back with the New Orleans Saints at pick number 8. When I went through this, there wasn't a whole lot of the biggest names. It pretty much kind of went, Mendoza, the main 2 edge rushers. The Saints came up and grabbed Jeremiah Love at number 4. And then I believe it went Sonny Styles, then Caleb Downs. And I believe that right now, Ruben Bain is not on the Tennessee Titans radar at the moment. So I wanted to try to go with a different pick here. Carnell Tate also went as well. So I went with Jermod McCoy out of Tennessee. Again, I believe he would have been a bona fide top 10 pick had he not had the injury going into this draft offseason. So I think the Tennessee Titans, if they truly believe that he is fully healthy, and based on everything that he did at his pro day, which suggests so, then the Tennessee Titans may have been able to get a potential steal by not only grabbing a guy who would have been in the top 10 anyway, but also gaining another pick. And as you guys can see, Tennessee stayed with number 35. Here I decided to stay with it, and I chose Omar Cooper Jr. When I did this, again, do I believe he will necessarily be there? I am not 100% sure. To me, there is a clear gap between the top 6 wide receivers and everybody else. So even if Omar Cooper Jr. specifically isn't here, picture whatever top 6 wide receiver is in this. I believe one of them will still be there at 35, in my personal opinion. So just picture that name there. Even if you think Omar Cooper is not going to be there, think Denzel Boston, Casey Concepcion. I think the other 3 for sure will not be there. Mekhi Lemon, Jordan Tyson, and Carnell Tate. I think one of those 3, the Omar Cooper Jr., Denzel Boston, or Casey Concepcion, could potentially fall to 35. And I think this will be a prime spot for the Tennessee Titans right here. I think you get a bona fide starter as a cornerback, and then even if he is not physically ready, then you can at least get a guy who can almost do the Jeffrey Simmons type route, not necessarily redshirt a full year, but really kind of ease them into it, especially when we just picked up 2 starters in free agency at the cornerback position. So Jeremiah McCoy wouldn't have to immediately come in and be a major impact player. You follow it up with getting Cam Ward a weapon. At 42, I went with Emmanuel Pregnon. This is an interior lineman guard. I believe he'll be able to start right away. One of the best, if not the best, interior offensive lineman in this year's draft. I think there's one guy that's rated a little bit higher than him, but he's one of the best, for sure, top 3, I think. And so I think the Titans would be able to get a starting guard right away by selecting Pregnon. And then I won't read every single draft pick, but as you can see, they get an edge rusher later on in the 3rd round to start their 3rd round. And then I kind of fit out the rest. We go corner at the top of day 3 with Devin Moore, Michael Taft. Safety, you guys will start to see, is a big theme that I think that the Tennessee Titans will be looking at. Again, that is going to be my hidden. If the Titans take a out of left field position, I think it'll be safe. And obviously, running back aside, if they go Jeremiah Love, I think safety, because I did not like what I saw from Amani Hooker. And so you guys will see me taking safety maybe a little bit earlier than a lot of people have on the radar, because I do think the Titans could benefit from a 3rd safety and eventually look to move on from Amari Cooper and have whoever they draft this year, and then they start opposite side of Kevin Winston Jr. At the start of the 2027 draft. So you guys will start to see that. But again, I really like just sticking with the first five picks for this draft. Gerard McCoy, you get a bona fide starting cornerback of the future. You get a weapon for Cam Ward. You get an immediate starter at the right guard position. You get some edge depth. Again, Danny Dennis Sutton out of Penn State. Will he be able to start day 1? Fringe, potentially. He is more of not necessarily a speed guy. So again, he is kind of a repeat of Jermaine Johnson and Femi Oladejo. But I think, again, if the Titans are wanting to forgo speed rusher just for a season, he is somebody who can kind of set the edge and be a really good run stuffer as well. So again, pass rush is going to be hard to come by if you're not taking them in the first 2 rounds. I just think that Cam Ward really needed a weapon here. But I really like, as you can guys see, they can still trade back, not go too far, still get impact players, and can even get positions where it may not be a screaming need right this moment, like cornerback, like in the 1st round, but they can at least get a guy who can start down the road for them. And honestly, even just because they picked up 2 guys in free agency doesn't mean that they can't get a 3rd corner, because there's going to be a lot of nickel being played with Robert Saleh's defense. So I really like how this ended up playing out. A different scenario, and I'm going to have 2 for each one of these. In this mock draft, I traded back with the Cleveland Browns, just 2 spots. Again, let's say the Titans do not want to go with Jeremiah Love at 4, or one of the edge rushers, say David Bailey was their guy and Alvarez Reese is gone. Trade back just 2 spots. Go ahead and get Carnell Tate. I know a lot of Titans fans really want to see Carnell Tate be on this football team. So I just traded 2 spots back. Was able still to pick up pick number 39. So I got 6 and 39 from the Cleveland Browns. And with pick 35, the Titans' own pick, I went with Chase Basantis, another offensive guard. Again, between Basantis and Pregnon, those 2 can kind of go back and forth for who's that next tier right guard who can slide in and be a plug and play right away. And so I'm still keeping that same theme. So I went wide receiver first, went with the starting guard, offensive lineman at pick 35. And now, since we have an additional pick in the 2nd round, there's where I went with the edge this time, just to switch it up a little bit. And I went with Cassius Howell out of Texas A&M. So a little back-to-back Texas A&M players right there. I think Cassius Howell, he has really small arms, but he is a speed rusher. He is a guy who you think that maybe you can kind of mold him. Maybe he won't be an all-star, but he certainly can be a productive player, and was very good for the Texas A&M Aggies last year. At pick 66, I went with a cornerback and Will Lee the third. Maybe a little rich at 66, but again, this is a guy who I think can eventually grow into a starter. He has the right frame. He's very, very, very pressure heavy at the line of scrimmage. He will press you like none other. So I really like the aggressiveness of Will Lee. And then at pick 101, I went with Bud Clark. And again, you guys can, for my non-YouTube, for my podcast people, I did pick up a running back in the 5th round, Emmett Johnson out of Nebraska, with this mock draft here. And again, I got some depth pieces. I got an interior offensive line in the 5th. Landar Barton, Cody Barton's younger brother, a linebacker in the 6th round, and a tight end and another interior offensive lineman to round out the 6th and 7th rounds. But there's just a different way of how the Titans can trade back just a little bit, not necessarily price, for lack of a better term, price themselves out of. They don't want to price themselves out of a really good elite talent, because this draft does not offer a ton of that. But they can at least trade back, pick up some extra picks early enough in the draft where they can be difference makers. And I think if you go Carnell Tate, Chase Bisontis, and Cassius Howe with your first 3 picks, you're addressing wide receiver, offense, interior offensive line at the right guard position, and then your edge rusher. So I think most people would argue those are the Titans' 3 biggest needs right now, and they were able to select all 3 of them within the first 39 picks. So I really think there is some value for the Titans trading down and staying inside of the top 10. And so we'll see how they decide to go about that. I do think, in my personal opinion, the Titans will stay pat at 4. But again, if they get an offer they can't refuse, do not be surprised for Mike Brigante to jump all over that. We've heard him say he wants 15 top 100 draft picks within the next 3 drafts. The Titans, they traded back last year, so they were able to pick up an additional 3rd round, and that's how they got Kevin Winston Jr. Could the Titans be looking to do something similar like that? So we will see how this exactly plays out, but this is certainly a way of going about accomplishing that by trading back at pick number 4 and getting an additional 2nd round pick, as we saw in these last 2 drafts. The next round I want to take a look at with you guys is trading back actually outside of the top 10 now. So we looked at them trading back at pick number 6 and pick number 8. Now let's look at what they do trading back outside of the top 10. And this time I went with a trade with the Dallas Cowboys. With this, again, do I think this guy is going to still be there? I don't, because I really don't see Caleb Downs getting past Cincinnati. But just for the sake of doing the mock draft, I wanted to see how this would play out. So at pick number 12, I actually went with Caleb Downs for the Tennessee Titans. Is he the greatest fit in the world? No. But again, at this point, at pick number 12, and you heard Mike Brigante say it actually today, they're going to look for the best players available. And there's no way that 11 players are better than Caleb Downs. So I think at this point, the slide stops for him. Safety is not a premium position in the NFL today, but there are not 11 players better than Caleb Downs. And certainly you can find a way to utilize his skill set on a Robert Saleh defense, or any defense for that matter, in the NFL. I don't think that Kevin Winston Jr. and or Amani Hooker are so great that you can't find a way to put Caleb Downs on the field. You see what I'm saying? Even though we have 2 starters, and I think Amani Hooker is still decent, but he clearly declined last year. And Kevin Winston still, as good as he started to play toward the end of the season, he's still just going to be in his sophomore year, hasn't played a full season in the NFL just yet. So adding a guy like Caleb Downs, especially when you can trade back to get him, you certainly didn't reach for a guy like that. He can go on to be an elite trait, an elite talent in the NFL. And again, I don't think that Amani Hooker is guaranteed to be on this roster past the end of this season. So I really like that. I really wanted to just to play around with it, see how it would go. And so you get Caleb Downs again, not your typical mock draft which you would see from Titans Nation around on socials right now. But again, getting Caleb Downs at 12, I think people will be ecstatic with that. At pick number 20 now, I went with Omar Cooper Jr. Again, more of a realistic spot. And one of them in the first mock draft, I had him going at 35. Will he still be there? I don't think so. But I definitely think that he could be available for the Tennessee Titans at pick number 20. So Caleb Downs at 12. You go wide receiver at pick 20. You're addressing one of your biggest needs. You still have your pick at 35. And with pick number 35, I went Akeem Mesidor out of Miami. A little bit of an older prospect. Again, this is a guy who I don't think will go on to be a real elite player. He can be to me, he's a guy who can start, but just won't grow into a all pro bowler type player, especially with how old he is, because he's already kind of set in some of his ways. And so I think Akeem Mesidor is not, I'm not the biggest fan of his game. Again, not necessarily the longest of arms in the world. And again, he just has some traits that aren't the most desirable, which is why he's available at 35. But certainly, I think he can be a contributor on the team. Again, every player is not going to be an all-star. But I think Akeem Mesidor can be a guy who can contribute year one. Again, I don't foresee him being a 12 to 15 sack guy in the NFL, but can just be a guy who gets you a solid 6.5 to 9 sacks every season. And if you get him in the second round, that's honestly not that bad of value. So that's exactly why I decided to go with Akeem Mesidor here at 35. Went against a little bit of some of my mock drafts here with pick 66. I went with Jadarian Price out of Notre Dame, so the backup running back to Jeremiah Love. Jadarian Price is really good. He just had an all-world talent in front of him at running back at Notre Dame. Jadarian Price is getting some talks to go early in the second round from some mock drafts. A lot of people still have him as that fringe late second round to early third round. So if the Titans can pick him up at 66, I actually think you might be able to get a future starter out of him, and he can really make a contribution year one. I think he can start to take over some of the reins from Tony Pollard. I mean, Tyjae Spears is on the last year of his deal as well. And so you're not really married to either one of those running backs long term. So you can really start to work in Jadarian Price as the season kind of gets further along, and you can start to see him get more of the bulk of the carries, after probably like the bye week and on, depending on where the Titans bye week is for them. So I really think you can still find a potential starter, and you didn't, again, feel like you have to reach for these guys. That was a big thing with trading all the way back outside of the top 10. I don't want the Titans to feel like they should not be reaching for guys. Now we're getting 2 first-round picks. We're keeping our 35th overall pick. We should not be reaching for guys now. Now we should be able to really go get guys who we never thought would be available, right? Because the Titans, as it currently stands, aren't drafting at pick 12. They're not drafting at pick 20. So those two draft picks immediately should be guys like, we never even thought we'd have a chance to go grab them. That's where we have to go with. And then at that point, you can really decide to start how you can fill out the rest of your draft. So Jadarian Price at 66. I went with a cornerback, Daylen Everett at pick 101. Again, round 4 is going to be really interesting because the Titans obviously only have 1 4th-round pick as it stands right now. And they have the first pick of day 3. So once day 2 ends, the Titans get to get a full night's sleep. They can rest on whoever, just like they did last year. We had the first pick of the 4th round, and we took Chimere Dike. So that means he was the first guy on their board out of everyone left in the draft after day 2. So the Titans get to repeat that same draft process, and we see it worked out really, really well for Mike Bergonzi last year. So I really like where the Titans are at. Thank you to the Las Vegas Raiders for that pick. So I think that the Titans really could do some damage at pick 101 because they now get to hold the cards for how day 3 sets up. They get to take the number 1 player. There's no influence whatsoever on who they want to pick once they go to bed after day 2. So I went with the corner, went with an offensive tackle in Jude Bowerly, Dejon Stribling out of Ole Miss at pick 144. Got some edge help, defensive tackle, and then linebacker just to kind of fill out these rounds here. But again, majority of these mocks, I'm going to really focus on the first 5 to 6 picks just so you guys can kind of get an idea of how I wanted to build out different scenarios for the Tennessee Titans. So again, I think ending this here to wrap this mock draft up, getting Caleb Downs, Omar Cooper Jr., Akeem Mesidor, Jadarian Price, and Daylen Everett. I think these are all guys who can contribute year 1 and honestly be full-time starters by year 2 at minimum. So if you can get that out of your first 5 picks, that's big time. I mean, think about it. Just last year, the Titans, obviously we got Cam Ward, who was a day 1 starter, but Femi was not a day 1 starter. Kevin Winston Jr. was not a day 1 starter, and Chim Dike was a starter by default. But I think that was more so about the lack of wide receiver options and not necessarily a testament to his overall wide receiver pedigree or who he was as a wide receiver so young into his NFL career. But I think Dalen Everett can be a really good cornerback number 3. Jadarian Price can be your number 1 running back by week 12 or 13. Keem Mesidor probably will start day 1 opposite of Jermaine Johnson. And then you have Omar Cooper Jr. is going to obviously start, and then Caleb Downs, who you can figure out how he's going to play a big role in Robert Saleh's defense. So, again, I feel like you're getting 4 guys who are going to contribute right away, and then a 5th starter by the beginning of year 2, and then you got some depth guys from there on. So I like how this played out, even though the Titans do trade back a little further than I probably would like, but you can see how they can still get some home run options outside the top 10. Another mock draft, and I won't spend as much time on this one, but again, at pick number 12, Mansour Delane falls to pick 12. Again, he's probably the number 1 corner on every single NFL team's board for the most part. That he's the consensus pick to be the number 1 corner taken. Again, most teams have him going inside the top 10. But again, with the Titans trading back, who knows who the Cowboys are going to be trading up for? Again, that's who I made this this mock draft trade with. Who knows who the Cowboys are going to go up and trade for, and how that's going to affect everyone else down the line. And so you probably will get a name that you didn't expect to fall to pick number 12. And Mansour Delane is exactly who I went with. I jumped all over this. I'm like, if he's there at pick 12, again, the Titans probably are getting, if not the best, because I do think Jermon McCoy is a dog. You're getting the 2nd best cornerback, and you traded, and you got him at pick 12. And he's, this entire time, has been mocked to be a top 10 pick. So again, incredible value there. At pick 20, went with a different wide receiver this time, went with Casey Concepcion. I really do think that if the Titans do a trade like this, pick number 20 has to be a wide receiver. You have got to get yourself one of the top 6 wide receivers to help out your young quarterback. And now you're making it to where you're in a position to grab one of them. I find it a hard time believing that the Tennessee Titans would not go with a receiver with pick number 12 or pick number 20. Pick 12 really could be a receiver as well. I didn't know if Mekhi Lemon and or Jordan Tyson, who I probably would have picked at pick number 12, are so much of a difference that I don't know who I necessarily would have wanted the Titans to take at pick 20. So if I went receiver at 12, I don't know who the Titans necessarily should be grabbing at pick 20. I did want an interior offensive guard, but again, once the top guard went off the board, I can get Chase Basantis, or as you guys can see at pick 35, Emmanuel Pregnon is who I got in the 2nd round. And I think that he can be just as good of a starter as anybody I was going to get in the 1st round. So I think that you can get better value out of going a cornerback and then receiver at 12 and 20 than you could go take receiver first at 12. And then you're kind of trying to fit a square peg into a round hole at pick number 20. Maybe you reach for a guy, or again, you're taking a player that maybe not would be at a premium position, and then you're also not getting an elite talent as well. Because again, there's the safety out of Oregon. His last name is losing me, but his first name's Dylan. I thought about picking him at 20 because he was available. But again, if you're going safety, why would you go non-premium position and a non-elite talent? At least in the last mock draft we looked at, we got Caleb Downs, who's clearly a top 10 prospect in this draft. I don't want to go, that's why I'm so big on Jeremiah Love. I don't want to go non-premium position in the 1st round and combine that with non-elite talent. It would make no sense to me for the Titans to draft a running back, a safety, and an interior offensive lineman outside of the top 4. You know what I mean? To me, it doesn't make sense, because at that point, you're not getting a guy who's mocked to be an elite talent, and you're also not getting a premium position at the same time. So those are double negatives. So just moving on with this draft, this mock. So I went with my first 3 again. I went cornerback, wide receiver, guard, and then a pick 66, one that I think could be sneaky good. Jacob Rodriguez, linebacker out of Texas Tech. We know how much Robert Saleh loves linebackers. He's a former linebackers coach. He's a linebacker whisperer. He can get guys. He can turn late round linebackers into really productive players. Look at who Fred Warner is. He is an absolute dog, and a lot of that influence that he has had in his career came directly from Robert Saleh. So I think Jacob Rodriguez could be the Mike linebacker we need next to Cedric Gray. And I think that this is kind of going back to my last week's episode. where the Titans could potentially forego edge rusher once you don't grab them within the first 35 picks. Again, I think that you can look at edge rusher being a route that the Titans could forego for a little bit. But again, this is where, like I was saying earlier, where pick 101 is very important. The Titans get to dictate how the rest of day 3 goes, because with my 101 pick, I went with Jashawn Barham out of Michigan. As you can see, courtesy of A to Z Sports on their mock draft simulator, it's an A. And I think this is an A. I think Jashawn Barham is going to go earlier than this. But if he falls, the Titans should jump all over it. Again, this is a guy who I think can start. Again, not an elite talent. I don't know how well he's going to transition and be a all-world player, but he is a guy who can be impactful, big body guy who can start potentially for the Titans right away. And if you can get him in the 4th round and you're taking him with the first pick, and then you kind of have a second to chill until you get to the top of the 5th round, I think this is a great haul for the Titans. Starting corner who can play day 1. Mr. Delane is not injured, so he can play day 1. Casey Concepcion will be a starter right away. Pregnon starting at right guard. Jacob Rodriguez, your starting Mike. And then you get an edge rusher who potentially could start opposite of Jermaine Johnson. Again, is not necessarily the fastest and the quickest speed rusher in the world, but he can start. He can set an edge. He can start opposite of Jermaine Johnson. And so, and again, he can at least battle maybe Femi Oladejo for the starting role, depending on what they want to do with Femi. So again, you're getting potentially 5 starters, at worst 4 starters, which are first 5 picks. And again, you did trade back a little bit further, but you're still hitting a lot of the main positions that the Titans are needing. You're getting a wide receiver, you're getting interior offensive line, you're getting a linebacker, all within the first 66 picks. And of course, to start it off with, you got a starting cornerback who can be your cornerback number 1, slide Alontae Taylor into the slot. And now you're looking at one of the best secondaries, at least from a cornerback standpoint, one of the best cornerback groups in the NFL off rip before you've even played a game. And if you look at who the Titans had in week 17, week 18 last year, it was abysmal. I barely knew who the heck was on this roster. And now you go from that to who we have now. That's huge. That is huge. So I think that there's some positivity that can come out of the Titans trading back a little bit further than I think a lot of Titans fans would maybe necessarily want them to. But there's certainly positives when you really look at it. So that, again, let me know down below what you guys think about this. That's with the Titans trading back into the first round. Now we're going to look at some scenarios where the Titans trade back out of in the second round. So they're going to pick at number 4. Then we're going to look at how they do trading back at pick 35. And so with this first mock draft, I have David Bailey is what the Titans go with at pick number 4. He was available. I wanted to get away from the Jeremiah Love route. And so I wanted to see how this would play out. So I went with David Bailey at pick 4. I traded back with the Minnesota Vikings. So the Titans had pick 35. We sent that to Minnesota. And with that, the Titans were able to pick up pick number 49 and pick number 82. With pick number 49, I said it last week, Chris Bell, the receiver out of Louisville. In my opinion, he would have been a first-round draft pick if he did not tear his ACL. I think he is the Kevin Winston Jr. of this year's draft. I think that and if the Titans can trade back and get a player of his caliber, I think we're cooking. I think we're absolutely cooking. You get a starting number 1 wide receiver talent out of Chris Bell. You get your edge rusher that you want, your ideal edge speed rusher. And then you still have 2 picks to go before you even get out of day 2. With my day 2 picks, I went with, again, Jadarian Price. If he's there at 66, I think he's fully in play for the Titans, especially if they don't go with Jeremiah Love earlier. In the draft. And then I picked 82. I went with Jake Slaughter out of the University of Florida. Go Gators. He's a center. Again, he's a guy who can be a plug and play. A little bit of riskier. I mean, there's certainly a lot of upside there, but there is some concerns as well, which is why he's falling a little bit later on in the draft. But I think this is a good spot that Jake Slaughter really realistically could be at. I think he can go anywhere from the low 70s to the top of day 3. He could be available at pick 101 as well. I just decided to not wait. Don't risk it, especially with the Titans going with edge rusher and receiver, and then going with a running back with your first 3 picks. I decided they need some interior offensive line help, so I just went ahead and pulled the trigger. And then I picked 101. I went with Malik Muhammad out of the University of Texas, cornerback. Again, I think that these are probably the 5 biggest needs on the team right now: edge rusher, receiver. Long term, they'll need a running back. They need interior offensive line help, so they got a center, and then they got a cornerback as well. That can be their cornerback number 3. Again, Malik Muhammad's a guy who probably won't start day one. Will kind of get worked in there, but being able to get your speed rusher that you know that the Titans want, you can work in Chris Bell, even if he's not fully healthy. You can work him in to a starting role. And you got him at pick 49, so you don't feel like you really reached for him now. And because of you traded back, you now were able to get up. You were able to go get your starting center. You got Jake Slaughter because you traded back. You got a first-round talent in Chris Bell. And then you still have your running back of the future in Jadarian Price, who's very, very good. So I think this, if I had to choose, pick 35, I would rather the Titans trade back at than pick number 4. But you can see how they can positively impact the Titans either way. But I think this is a better way because you're for sure locking yourself into an elite talent like David Bailey has. He has elite traits. So you're locking yourself in to the edge rushers, a speed rusher that you need. You're getting Cam Ward some help. You're getting Cam Ward additional help in running back and interior line, and then you still got a corner. And then the rest of the draft, I went and got a linebacker, got a safety, got another edge. Really starting to hammer some higher upside guys on the defensive side of the ball who I believe Robert Saleh can coach up into productive players. So this is more of the route I think I'm leaning more towards. If I gun in my head, I have to choose one of the picks for the Titans to trade down on. It's pick 35, and it's something that plays out just like this. Trading back not too far to where you can't grab the next tier of receiver or edge or whoever they go with. But you also are able to pick up another draft pick within pick number, they got pick 82 in this scenario. But again, picking up another pick anywhere from the low 70s, the high 70s to the low 90s, I think is a prime position for the Titans to gain another draft pick at. And then again, with you drafting at pick 101, you really are able to set the table for the remainder of day 3. And so that was one scenario. I do have a second scenario with them trading back at 35. In this one, I have the Tennessee Titans going with Jeremiah Love at pick number 4. And then I have Zion Young. I have the Titans trading back with the Miami Dolphins from pick 35 to 43. So just a little bit of a smaller, not as far. And then they were able to pick up pick number 93 in this draft. So they go Jeremiah Love, the guy we all want. Zion Young out of Mizzou. Again, he's not a fully polished edge rusher. The high motor, great character guy. I think he's going to be one that really wows Bergonzi and Robert Saleh. He gives me a lot of Femi vibes. Just a super motivational guy who's going to do the dirty work. You're not going to have to worry about him taking plays off. He's got a high motor. And being from Missouri, I'm son of a Mizzou grad, so we also like Mizzou in this house. So I'm a big fan of Zion Young. I think he can be a productive player. Again, is he going to be an all-world player? I don't know about that, but I think he's a guy who's going to give a high motor and really have a chance to come into his own. He won't have so much pressure like a David Bailey we need you to be awesome right away. I think he can kind of work his way in there. At 66, I went with Connor Lew, who's an interior lineman out of Auburn. He's going to play center in the NFL. Again, with this, I wanted to ensure almost every one of these drafts. I want to ensure the Titans get at least a starter at the center or right guard position because I do think it is important. So you only have, unless you trade down, you only get 4 picks to make that happen. I think once you get past 101, there are no more starters that you can plug and play in at center or right guard. And even then, picking someone at 101 is risky. to think that they're going to be ready for day one. I think there's some guys who can do it, but it's already risky enough. So I went and decided. I know some people are like, "Where's the receiver? Where's the receiver at?" Well, I went with offensive center at 66, and then I went and got us a wide receiver, Bryce Lance, who's actually the younger brother of Trey Lance, the former number one first round quarterback for the San Francisco 49ers. Bryce Lance is a big-bodied receiver. He's very fast. Ran a sub 4.4 40 at the combine. The only thing is, again, he went to North Dakota State just like his brother. So you question the amount of talent that he faced. He's not facing a lot of premier NFL talent, but he is a guy who is ideal for that X receiver spot. He can play the X. He really can push Alec Eilmanor for that X wide receiver spot, and he's very fast. He's faster than Alec Eilmanor. To me, from what I've seen, he's a pretty decent route runner. There's still some left to be desired, but he's still a pretty decent route runner. It's really all about competition. He excelled at the FCS level. Can that translate into the NFL? And we see guys do it all the time. It's just not a guarantee. So that's why at 93, pick number 93, I think that's a really good spot for him. And then at pick 101, again, Genesis Smith. He's a guy who I don't even expect to be here. I think Genesis Smith is going to go in the third round. But again, if he's there's your starting safety of the future. You're going to put him next to Kevin Winston Jr., and you're going to roll. And I was able to get some cornerback depth. I picked up another wide receiver, Kevin Coleman. And you guys will see in this draft too. I went with a lot of teammates, Zion Young and Kevin Coleman, Jeremiah Love out of Notre Dame, Emil Wagner, who was an offensive tackle for Notre Dame, blocking for Jeremiah Love last year. I went with him in the 7th round, and I also went with a pair of offensive linemen from Auburn, Connor Lew, the center, and then Jeremiah Wright, the offensive guard. I got him in the 6th round. So got some teammates, some familiarity. Again, the Titans are going to be big on character guys and guys who can relate to each other. They're big on the locker room presence. So I think we could see some guys have some teammates that go along. Again, not guaranteeing or predicting that by any means, but we do know how important camaraderie is to Mike Bergonzi. So we could see something like that. So picking up 2 Mizzou guys, 2 Notre Dame guys, 2 Auburn guys, I wouldn't be surprised to see some type of combination like that, at least from one school when the draft does get here. So again, that's how you guys can see another trade down for the Titans at pick number 35. They can still pick up some really good talent and start to fill out some of the positions that we are all significantly worried about. And Cam Ward is still getting some help in all these scenarios, and the defense is not getting abandoned. Too many times with a lot of these mock drafts, I'm saying that it's big time defense or big time offense. We're getting Cam Ward all the help in the world, but the defense is not getting a lot of productive young players. And then on the other flip of it, we're getting a lot of defensive guys are getting some. I saw one got an offensive tackle in the 2nd round. What are we doing there? Because that guy's not going to play right away. And then Cam Ward's getting abandoned. He's not getting receivers until the 6th round. We cannot do that either. So each one of these times, I feel like I'm paying enough attention to the defense, to guys who can be impactful, while also helping out Cam Ward, our young quarterback, as well. So I hope you guys can kind of pick up on that theme. I did do one trade down at 66. I don't know exactly how realistic this is. Just to show it to you guys, I don't know how much value it is trading back in the 3rd round just to pick up some additional 5th rounders, but just so you guys can see. And then again, I went with Arvell Reese this time just to have a different name at pick number 4. Went with Denzel Boston, traded back from 66 with the Kansas City Chiefs, traded back to 74 just because I kind of felt like I was in no man's land with this particular draft. Didn't have a whole lot of ways to go, and so there was a couple guys I thought I was going to be reaching for, and even here you can see on the mock draft, Jake Slaughter, I got a C grade for picking him up. Remember, I got him at 82 in another mock draft, and I got a much higher grade than that. So again, Jake Slaughter could go here in real life, but no guarantee. He could be more of an 80s to a very low 100 type player. And so I didn't want to reach at 66 for a couple of these guys. I felt like there was no edge rusher that was screaming I needed. Connor Lew went off the board, so there were interior offensive linemen that weren't there at 66. So I just played with this scenario. Don't exactly expect the Titans to do this at all, but they do get Jake Slaughter. Then I've got a cornerback at 101 with Davidson Igbinosun out of Ohio State. Jalen Kilgore is safety at 142. I got a linebacker at 144, and then with the additional pick I got from moving back, I got an interior offensive lineman out of Texas A&M, Armaj Reed Adams, Reed Adams out of Texas A&M. And so again, I don't see too much value in this. So I don't expect the Titans to be trading back by any means at pick 66. I think your biggest trade down scenarios are going to be at pick number 35 or number 4. One more trade scenario on day 2 I do want to look at with you guys and just see what you guys think. So in this one, I trade down from 35, and then I trade with the picks I gain, I trade back up into the 3rd round. So we get 2 third-rounders. In this mock draft, I have the Titans going with Jeremiah Love at 4. They trade back initially with the Detroit Lions. They gain pick 50 and pick 118 and pick 128. So they get pick 50 and then 2 round 4 draft picks and 18 and 28. I go with Malachi Lawrence at pick 50, Jacob Rodriguez, who we talked about earlier, at 66. And then as the draft started to go, I was like, you know what? The Titans still need a wide receiver, and I don't want to wait until pick 101 or pick 118 or 128 to make that happen. We're getting Cam Ward some help. So I used pick 118 and 128, the picks we had just gotten from the Detroit Lions, and I traded back up and got Skylar Bell out of UConn. Another big body receiver who can play that X route. Again, that's going to be a theme for me. I think the Titans need an X wide receiver. So he's a big guy. Again, you question the level of talent that UConn plays a little bit. That's why he's going to fall. But Skylar Bell is very strong, big body guy who can make things happen. So in contested situations. So again, if the Titans aren't offered, say they don't get a trade option where they can trade back to, the high 40s or low 50s, and they can get a pick inside the top 80 or 90 picks, right? Because maybe that's not what teams are willing to give up. So the Titans are just going to take pick 118, 128, and then use those as ammo to get back into the 80s and 90s. So that totally could be a scenario that we see play out as well for the Tennessee Titans. So don't expect that the Titans, that they automatically, just because they trade back at 35, that they're guaranteed to get a pick in the 80s or 90s. It may not happen. Teams may not be willing to give that up. And maybe the Titans just say no and stay pat at 35 and draft someone. But say the Titans really want to trade back. Well, this is a way that they can trade back. You still get a really productive player out of Malachi Lawrence, who I think can start day 1. And then you can trade. Then you still have your pick 66. Then you trade back up and get the receiver that you want, or interior offensive lineman that you want, or whatever. And so in this mock draft, I did kind of forego interior offensive line here, but that was the only way to kind of make it fit to where we can get Cam Ward some help, still not abandon the defensive side of the ball. I really like Charles Demings. He's one of my favorite players, so I had to take him at pick 101. He was there, and he's a guy who I think could be there at 101. Again, he played at Stephen F. Austin, so a smaller school, but I just love his game. As a former cornerback myself, love his game. And so I got some interior offensive linemen later with Logan Taylor out of Boston College, Pat Coogan out of Indiana later on in the draft. But those are going to be some depth guys, so the Titans will still need some starters in this particular draft. But again, I think this is just a different scenario and how they can trade back at 35. Maybe they don't get the exact haul that they're looking for, but they can still use the ammo that they got, move back up in the draft, and then get a player that they like. I actually did that one twice. And so another one, or I did the exact same thing, where again, they go with Arvell Reese this time at pick number 4. I traded back from 45 with the Baltimore Ravens. Again, they gave me pick 115 and 154. I went with Chris Brazzell out of Tennessee at pick 45. I went with Jennings Dunker, the offensive tackle out of Iowa, who's probably going to transition into an offensive guard at the next level. And then I used pick 115, 154, and 144. I had to give up a little bit more just to move up because the Cincinnati Bengals were not going for it. But I move up and go get us a cornerback Will Lee out of University of Texas A&M. And then at pick 101, I went and got us Mike Washington Jr., got us another running back. So again, we've looked at of course Jeremiah Love at 4. We looked at Jadarian Price at pick 66. This is a way that Titans can also potentially get a future starting running back at pick 101 as well. So again, I kind of abandoned interior offensive line here. Jennings Dunker probably will transition into a guard, so there's that line of thinking that he's going to be a guard. So there's your starting right guard. You have your big body receiver in Chris Brazzell, edge rusher in Arvell Reese, got a cornerback, and then you have Mike Washington to kind of take over the reins as the running back moving forward. So again, those are ways that the Titans can trade back in the second round on day 2, second and third round on day 2, and potentially move around the board. Even if they don't get the ideal scenario trade that they want, they can still trade back, use the ammo that they have, and then move back up in the draft and kind of see how they can move around. So if the Titans, again, initially if the Titans only ended up started with pick 4, 35, 66, and 101, and then somehow they end up with 4, 45, 66, and 72 and 101, I think that's still a smart way to kind of maneuver and build out your roster, so that way you have gain more starters for your team throughout. And so that is, again, for looking at our day 2 scenarios. In the very last one, I'm going to go over very briefly my ideal scenario for the Tennessee Titans. And this, again, does not involve a trade. You guys know who I want them to take at pick number 4. It's Jeremiah Love. Jeremiah Love is the guy. If I was in Mike Berganzi's seat, Jeremiah Love is who I'm going with at pick number 4. At pick 35, if he's there, I'm taking Denzel Boston. We talked about him last week. Gigantic receiver, can go up, make contested catches. He's going to be your boundary guy. He's going one-on-one with your opponent's number 1 cornerback, and I think he can be your next AJ Brown. I really do. He's jacked just like him. I think that's your next AJ Brown. I really believe in Denzel Boston. I'm just praying to the stars that he's there. At pick 66, I went with Romello Height, out of the edge rusher out of Texas Tech. Again, the guy played opposite of Jeremiah Love. I really like his tape. Again, he doesn't have as much speed off the edge as David Bailey. But I think that he has some speed to power to him. He's a cleanup guy. Again, he's going to be a guy who's going to be really good as part of a rotation, but he can be a contributor. Again, he's not going to be an all-world player, I don't think, but he's a guy who can contribute, get you 5.5 to 8.5 sacks, and just be a guy out there. And again, I don't think you're reaching for him at pick 66. At pick 101, I went with Samuel Heck, I believe is how you pronounce his name, center out of Kansas State. Again, a guy who I think is at the very fringe. He's one of those last guys I think can probably start with some good coaching right away. He can be a starter for the Tennessee Titans, and even though they're getting him in the 4th round. And so he's the last guy I'm kind of like, ooh, if we went with him, could he start right away? I think he can. And so I went with Sam Heck out of Kansas State. Followed up with Logan Taylor, a guy who I think maybe doesn't start day 1, but can grow into a productive starter at a guard position for the Tennessee Titans out of Boston College. So again, no trade back here, but I still think you're getting solid players, with your first 5 picks. You're getting starting running back, starting receiver, a guy who can play, who can start at the edge position. You got your starting center, and a guy who at least can compete for a starting right guard position. And then Takario Davis with your pick at 144 in round 5. I would absolutely adore that. I think he can be a really good guy. Again, it doesn't play exactly like Jarvis Brownlee Jr., but a guy who can be a 5th rounder and can still play. I think can be a steal here. If he's still on the board at pick 144, I think the Titans should be all over it and go grab him. And he can just start to slowly mold into that role and eventually be a starter in year 2 for the Titans next year. You guys have seen it multiple times. I'm going to pick a safety in almost every draft. Dalton Johnson out of Arizona. I think he can, again, a guy who maybe won't start right away, won't play meaningful snaps, but he can almost have a redshirt year. Again, the Titans did pick up Tony Adams, so they have a third safety on the roster already. And he's a guy who can kind of learn underneath these guys and eventually take over the role of Amani Hooker moving forward. Max Llewellyn, if he's there, I'm taking him with one of these 6th-round picks. I really like him. I love his game. I think he has a high motor. I think that he's, a guy who I can see wowing Mike Bergonzi. Everything I've seen about him, he's a student of the game, loves to play ball, and he's fairly disciplined. So I think he's somebody who Mike Bergonzi would fall in love with right away. And then at pick 125, I'm going with J. Michael Sturdivant out of University of Florida. This is a guy he's a big body guy. He's 6'2", runs a 4.4, can be a speed guy. Again, he's going to play. He can kind of almost be a backup X receiver. Maybe you can move him into a Z route potentially. A Z position. So again, he's a 7th-round flyer. Again, the Titans need all the help they can get at wide receiver, and so bringing in a guy like him, I think, can just only add the athleticism traits to the wide receiver room there. So overall, this is my ideal mock draft. I think, again, you get your starting running back. I think you get the best player in the entire draft. You still get your big body receiver. You get an edge rusher that can contribute in day one. You get a starting center. And then you get some depth at the offensive line spot while also still bringing in more depth at edge, getting a 3rd cornerback, getting a 3rd or 4th safety, and then you just bring in an athletic wide receiver. I think that is overall how you can still not ignore defense, get Cam help. This is offensive heavy, especially in the early rounds, but it's getting Cam where the help he needs, and we're rolling. Again, the Titans are not winning the Super Bowl this year, so I still firmly expect them to be picking kind of high in the draft next year. Again, I think the Titans are somewhere in that 7-9 win range. So again, teams that had 7 to 9 wins, you're looking at I think the Chiefs and the Bengals and the Miami Dolphins. So you're anywhere from pick 9 through 12, around there. If the Titans win 7 games next year, so again, you can still go get your starting edge rusher next year. Go get your speed guy next year. You have Romello Height, you have Jermaine Johnson, and you have Femi Oladipo. That rotation of 4 there, mixed with any other free agents they want to bring in, now you're cooking. Now you have a solid rotation of guys who can do a mix of different things, and you still have Jeffrey Simmons and John Franklin Myers. Now you have an elite. Now you're talking about a real elite from interior and outside edge help for pass rush. So this is how you can start to build this out, and by by the start of 2027, the Titans we're moving. So ultimately, that'll do it for me today, guys. Again, like and subscribe to the channel. Let me know what you guys think about any of these mock drafts. Again, I had the Titans trading down inside the top 10, outside the top 10 in the 1st round. We looked at them trading back from 35 in the 2nd round, how they could potentially trade back and then move. Trade back, get some picks in day 3, use those picks to move back up into round 3, and then we overall looked at my ideal mock draft. Again, the draft is just it's a week away, and so I'm so pumped, and I'll be here tweeting with you guys, putting out different little snips of my videos. I may do one last emergency right before the draft starts, either next Tuesday or Wednesday. I'll probably air out before the draft gets going, just so you guys can get my final thoughts. But this is ultimately how I would want the Tennessee Titans to fill out their draft board. So I think this hits a lot of screaming needs while also not reaching for a ton of guys, and they can get immediate help as well. That can help in year 1. We need to be successful in year 1. We cannot win 3 games next year. I think the Titans really need to be anywhere from 6 to 9 wins for this season to be considered a success. And I think Mike Bergonzi and Robert Saleh desperately need it. So again, let me know what you guys think of this mock draft. Until next time, tighten up.